Namaste. The year 2017 is a very important year for Saturn transit because Saturn transits 3 times this year. One transit has already happened as of January 26th. The next one is due on January 21 when Saturn transits back to Scorpio from Sagittarius, and then again on October 26th Saturn transits back again to Sagittarius, where it will stay for more than 2 years. So this year you'll find many astrological websites and astrologers giving different predictions for the Saturn transit. But most of these predictions, especially the free ones that you find on the websites and YouTube channels, are solely based on the position of the transiting Saturn vis-a-vis your natal moon, that is the position of the moon in your natal birth chart. But there is one, I believe, very important aspect that most astrologers don't seem to consider, and it is called Panoti yoga. And that is the reason for this particular presentation, which aims to tell you about Panoti yoga and how it's calculated and how it's to be taken into account. As mentioned before, the most commonly used parameter for analyzing Sade Sati is the position of the natal moon in one's birth chart. When Saturn transits houses 12, 1, and 2 relative to the natal moon, this is what is called Sade Sati and popularly denotes a period of problems and suffering in the material world. Saturn transits through the relative 8th house from natal moon, which is called Ashtamatsani, and to a lesser extent 4th house, which is called Ardhashtamatsani, also warns of problematic periods. Most free online astrology predictions related to Sade Sati rely solely on the pure house placement of transiting Saturn relative to the moon. This alone is not sufficient, and there are many other factors that need to be taken into account. Most competent astrologers will point to a number of other things that need to be considered for evaluating Saturn transits. Many astrologers look at the position of the lagna or the ascendant or the rising sign in a natal chart and often say this is more important in considering Saturn transits or any planetary transits for that matter. Then some astrologers also look at the position of the Saturn in your natal chart. Of prime importance also is the Dasa Bhukti period, and most people use the Vimshottari Dasa system, but it applies equally well to other Dasa systems, other Nakshatra Dasa systems, as well as other Rashi-based Dasa systems and Varshapal and other systems. We've already talked about the natal moon Rashi placement. Some astrologers also consider the individual nakshatra, in other words, which nakshatra your natal moon is. See, each Rashi contains 2 nakshatras and a little bit more. And that is because each nakshatra consists of 4 padas, and there is room only in each Rashi or in each zodiacal house for 9 padas. Then it's also important to consider the strength of each house and the strength of each planet in a particular house for each person based on their natal chart. This is known as Sarva Ashtavarga and Bin Ashtavarga. Then you also have to consider other planetary influences, both at the time of birth as well as the currently transiting planets. They're all important before you evaluate how the impact of Saturn transit is going to be for you. Most astrologers, however, do not seem to include Panoti yoga in their analysis. And this is an important one which seems to work quite well. And it's a technique popularized by an astrologer by the name of Sri P.M. Padya. Panoti yoga forms when the position of transiting Saturn is 4, 8, 12, 1, and 2 houses from natal moon. That is, we talked about this before, that is the Sade Sati positions as well as the Ashtamat Sani positions as well as the Ardhashtamat Sani positions. Under this technique, the Rasi position of the moon is noted at the exact time Saturn is transiting. For example, when the January 26th Saturn transit took place, at the exact time of that Saturn transited from Scorpio to Sagittarius, the house position of the moon was also in Sagittarius. The house position of the moon relative to natal moon determines the extent to which the Saturn transit will be beneficial or troublesome. All of this will become clear when I explain how this works in the next few slides. Now, Panoti yoga comes in 4 different types: silver, copper, gold, and iron. If one's running through a silver Panoti, one is expected to have a pretty good time. It's a time of auspiciousness, prosperity, happiness. Copper Panoti denotes a somewhat mildly auspicious and basically generally favorable transit. Gold Panoti denotes a time of mild problems, and iron Panoti denotes more serious problems. Silver Panoti occurs when the position of the moon at the time of Saturn transit relative to natal moon is at 2, 5, and 9 houses from natal moon. That is, if, for example, for the January 26th transit, Saturn transited to Sagittarius, and at that time of transit, the moon itself was in Sagittarius. So anybody who's had a moon in their natal chart in Sagittarius also would be going through the gold Panoti, because the position of the moon at the time of Saturn transit relative to natal moon is 1 house. The transiting moon is also Sagittarius compared with the natal moon, which is Sagittarius. Saturn transits 3 times during 2017. One has already happened, as mentioned before, on January 26, 2017. The next one is due on June 21st, 2017, and then we have one final transit occurring on October 26, 2017, when Saturn moves back to Sagittarius and will stay there for more than 2 years. Panoti yoga will need to be calculated for each of these 3 transits to determine the impact on the period following the transit. These are calculated in the next 3 slides. For the January 26, 2017 transit, Saturn moved from Scorpio to Sagittarius, and at the exact time of transit, transiting moon, which is the yellow moon, happened to be in Sagittarius itself. So those who had their natal moon in Sagittarius, the natal moon is represented by the orange moon, they are going to undergo, or they're currently undergoing, gold Panoti. Whereas those who've had their natal moon in Scorpio, which is represented by the orange moon in Scorpio, now the transiting moon, the yellow moon, is 2 houses away from Scorpio, so that represents a silver Panoti. That is the best type of Panoti, and that basically denotes a very favorable period following the transit. News is not so good for those who with a Capricorn or Taurus or Virgo natal moon, because these people will be undergoing the iron Panoti. The next transit takes place on June 21st, 2017, when Saturn moves back to Scorpio. Here, those with their moon in Sagittarius, Scorpio, and Libra will be undergoing Sade Sati. But those with Sagittarius and Libra moon, natal moon, will have copper Panoti, which basically denotes a somewhat favorable period. Whereas those with a natal moon in Scorpio, they can expect a period of a little bit of a turbulence. Those with Leo natal moon should expect they'll be going through silver Panoti, favorable period, and those with Aries natal moon will be going through the gold Panoti, a mildly unfavorable period. On October 26, 2017, Saturn again moves into Sagittarius, where it will stay for more than 2 years. And at this time, at that point of transit, natal moon will be found, the transiting moon will be found in Sagittarius itself. So you have basically the same situation that occurred in the January 26 transit, which means that those with natal moon in Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo will be going through iron Panoti, and those with the Sagittarius natal moon will be going through gold Panoti, and those with a Scorpio natal moon will be going through the silver Panoti, the best Panoti. Again, one does need to take into account all the other parameters mentioned before, but don't forget Panoti yoga. It's a very important yoga to be taken into account when you're evaluating your Saturn transit. Thank you very much.